Hi YouTube, welcome to Otto's Garage. Hi guys, okay, so today we're going to have a look at the rear arch, which we've previously fixed onto the bodywork in another video. But what we've got to do now is somehow or other we've got to tidy up this edge, because obviously at the moment there's a horrendous step between the fiberglass and the original steel panel. And the other issue that I've got as well is that when the back door is closed, there's a big step between the two fiberglass levels at this point. So we're gonna have to build this one up and bring it flush to the actual door panel, which is going to create a bit of work. So stay tuned and we'll see how we get on. Because we're having to build up so much, we're going to use a filler which has got a fiberglass mat already in it, which should mean that it should stop like cracking, because if you just put the other filler on, the normal filler, and it's too thick, it's just going to end up cracking somewhere, I'm sure. So we're going to use that as a base, and then we'll build up the smooth filler on top of that. So I'll have a mix up on that, I'll get some of that applied, and we'll see how it looks. Same rules apply here. We've gone for a sort of golf ball to pea ratio, so I've got quite a decent size there. So, and I want this to go off a bit quicker, so I have actually put a little bit more hardener in. So we've got to give that a good mix up, and then when it's had a good mix up, we can then get it onto the blister arch on the joint there, and just see if we can't just bridge across there and make sure that it's going to give a good foundation for the top filler afterwards. The other thing on here is this fast mover board. Fantastic bit of kit. It's like if you imagine an onion skin, so it's made up of layers, and then what you do is when you've finished mixing your filler on it, you can basically tear that layer off, and you've got a brand new clean pad underneath. Saves messing around trying to find a decent bit of plastic to mix things on, or a bit of old cardboard and stuff. There's 100 on here, and I think we are on number 1 at the moment. So that's going to be pretty cool for when it actually comes to the finishing, to stop getting loads of horrendous lumps in your filler from the previous mix. Right, you can see there that's nicely mixed together now, so the red is basically taken a consistency all the way through the material. If you've still got any like large pieces of red showing in there, you know that you haven't quite mixed it finely. Okay, so we're going to take that over to the car and we'll stick that on. And that's a bit of a two-handed operation, so I'll show you that when she's been applied. Okay, so I've applied the fiberglass filler there along that joint, so that's going to reinforce that then. Obviously that's going to need a little bit of flattening off before we come to put the top filler on it. There's also a gap here where we didn't have correct fitment of the back of the arch against the bodywork, so I've just filled that in there as well, so we've got a good fiberglass key between the two panels now on that front. And then when we come round here, I've just put a bit in behind the door where the door reveal is as well. Needs a little bit more down the bottom here, but it's this face here that's going to need the massive amount of work, so that's going to need more filler in the bottom of that. So I'll mix up another batch of the fiberglass and we'll apply some of that into there as well. Where this is just sloping in here, that's going to be more vertical. When you shut the door, the actual edge of the door is further out at the top than it is at the bottom, so that's got like a taper there which we need to lose as well. But basically once we've got the fiberglass base filler in there, we can then have a play around with getting the top filler on it, and all being well it should just all blend in nicely, but we'll see how we go on that one. Good luck and fingers crossed, they say. Right, we've got the base fiberglass filler on, so let's just have a look and see what she's looking like now. So yeah, what I've done is I've built up a lot of this leading edge here basically to give us a sound foundation for the smooth filler. But what we've got to do now is this does need a little bit of flattening off. I don't want to go too mad with it, because obviously we're just going to be adding to it all the time, but there are a couple of bumps, and I don't know whether you can see, but there's just occasional kind of like hairs, which fiberglass mat hairs, which just stick out here and there, so they all want getting rid of, so that when the base filler goes, when the top filler goes on it, you haven't got anything sticking through it, obviously. The other thing that I've had to do as well is that this part has been built up out as well, because when the door comes to it, we've got to basically try and recreate a continuous shot line on there. I didn't want a taper, which is just going to look horrendous. So it's going to be easier to have the build up on the back panel than it is on this fragile back edge of the door. So we'll just try and follow this line, tidy this door end up obviously, but we'll follow this line and try and make it work that way. Okay, so I thought I'd just try making up some of my own P40 equivalent of body filler. So this is the filler that we've used on the back arch, which has got the fiberglass strands in it. So it just struck me that really that's all that the expensive tub of filler is just pre-mixed resin with fiberglass strand, and then all they're doing is they're just basically repackaging it and selling it with a bit of hardener, and bingo, they must be making a fortune out of it. So I've just decided to just try as a bit of an experiment. So basically what I've done is I've got some little this is fiberglass strand matting, which we use for doing flat roofing repairs and things like that. So I've just chopped that into a few squares, smaller squares, and just pop them in a tub. And what I'm going to do tonight, I'm just going to put in that tub a little bit of the normal general purpose resin that we use. So that's this kind of stuff here. Nothing special about it, it's just basically decent quality stuff, but that is fundamentally all that you would use when you're doing fiberglassing of any kind. And that's the stuff that I used when I did the doors, the back door, when we did all of the extension pieces fitted on the arches, and did the work inside the door as well. So it's just a standard resin that we would use. So I'm going to pop a bit of that into this tub, and then we'll just see what it looks like after we've left it, because all that happens is that the resin has got a dissolver in it, and basically the chopped strand matting, the strands are glued together. So when the resin comes into contact with it, they all lift and separate, which is quite normal. And I think probably what will happen is we'll just hopefully end up with a bit of a workable mush, is what I'm hoping for. We don't want too much resin in there, we just need enough that we can turn these into something which you can then use to apply to the body. And then all we'll do is we'll just take a segment like we did before, take a bit of that out, and we'll add a bit of the accelerator to it, which again is the same stuff that I use on roofing. And then basically we'll just see whether that works. And it could be a very cheap way of getting some P40 body filler. Let's see how we go. Well, we've mixed that up. I don't think that is a million miles off what the stuff from the bar off the shelf is like. The only thing I would say with it is that I think that perhaps next time I make a batch, I think we'll probably cut the squares of cloth into smaller. The fibres are quite long in this, but you can see how they're kind of separating anyway. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to take a splodge of this and get it out of there. And then what we'll do is we'll mix it with some of the normal hardener that I've got, and we'll just apply a bit of that to the other arch on the other side of the car, and just see what it's like when it goes off. But yeah, I don't think that's a million miles off. It can't be rocket science at the end of the day, can it? Or maybe it is, I don't know. So I've got some fast activity hardener here. This stuff really, it's, for the quantity that I've got here, I'm just going to need a real tiny bit to make that work. This is for really adding to, I don't know, a litre at a time. You might put maybe 10 mils in, something like that, So what we've got here is just like a real tiny bit in comparison. So I'm just going to put a little bit of that into it. I'll mix that around a wee bit, and then I'm going to go and pop it on the other arch on the other side, and we'll just see how it takes. So I've applied it on there. I mean, fundamentally it's the same. I can't see a huge difference. I think they might put some kind of extra additive into the one that you get from the shop, which might just make it a little bit more gooky. But I think the biggest change that I can do, and I'm going to do next time once I've used this little batch up, is shorten the fibre lengths. I think the fibres that I've got are probably too long, but at the end of the day, this is free. Well, I say free. I've got absolutely tons of resin. I've got tons of chop strand matting, and I've got tons of the hardener. So at the end of the day, it's well worth giving it a go. I don't know what's the other stuff. The other stuff must be £5 a tin, something like that. So I think probably we'll see how that goes off. I think that's going to be good, and then it can be sanded back just like we've got on the first side, and then we can add up and build. But you can see there on the back of the door how the back of the door protrudes out. So this section down here needs kind of building out, but we can do that with Otto's P40. Perhaps we should call it P Otto. I don't know. Right, this is the P40 filler that we put on. That's all gone off. We're just giving that a light sand down, and basically I'm just going to put a bit of my filler in here to chunk it up a little bit in readiness for the top. But that's worked really well, and that's going to stop any kind of cracking on there at all. So this is going to be quite seamless at the end of the day, and it won't look like a bodged on fiberglass panel, all being well. So that's the last of the thick fiberglass build up. So what we'll do now is, when that's gone off, we'll get some filler on it and try and replicate the door shape on there at the same time. The door handle on the skin, obviously that's as it comes from the factory, out of the mould like that. So what I did was I've taken the old door handle, which goes that way around in fact, off the old skin, and I need to recreate the holes in there. So what we did was I cut the old skin away basically, and just that's basically all the holes for fixing the handle. So I'm just going to use that as a template, and then when that's offered up, we can cut exactly in the right place and make sure that the handle is actually going to fit. I'll just get that there. So that goes into that recess quite well, and then the handle should just go straight onto the fiberglass when that's done. So that's the next stage. I've put some filler on now then, so we can just have a look and just see how that's looking. So the back arch now has had that skin filler that I just put on, and I've just sanded that off level-ish I should say. That's pretty good for the first go. And if you look down the door now as well, you can see that she is actually sitting pretty good to the actual door skin as well. I did adjust the door a little bit, And I've also tried to get that shut line looking something like as well, because that wouldn't have looked right. And you can see now, of course, the handle's in there. Just pull that there. But I found that the easiest way is to, if you fit the shut plate on there, obviously all the lever latch and the door handles in. The easiest way of doing it is set that end first, and then when the door's shut and she's in the right place, then you can go down this end and just tweak the hinges up and down and get that in the right place. So she looks good there. Of course, the proof of the pudding is going to be when we fit the front door, and then we've just got to see what kind of gap we've got between the front door and the back door. But we've got to start somewhere, and to be fair, this skin has really determined where everything's got to line up, because obviously it's only a certain size, and it sticks out a certain way. But yeah, that's looking very good now, really. Just have a look around from the back, and you can just see again the line of that arch as it's going onto that back door there, and it's looking pretty okay. We've still got a few little bits and bobs in here and there. These are going to need filling up, obviously. And I'm still not happy with how this is going, so I need some more skim on there and just feed that and feather that back up to that coach line up the top there. We've managed to blend the wing back up to the coach line, so it's got rid of all of that previous heavy fiberglass that you could see on there. What you can see on here now is this little putty which we've put on. So where I've found little pinholes when it's been finally sanded, and any little defects in the surface, just put a bit of putty in there. So what I'll do is I'll just sand that off afterwards when it's set, and then basically that should have got rid of all those little nasty pinholes. And pinholes in fiberglass paint are really bad. They trap all the air, and then you end up with defects in the finish of the paint. It can look like bubbles under the surface. So that may or may not happen. We're just going to try and get rid of what we can. But the great thing that I do like is the alignment of the arch to the door. So where she comes through, it really has just gone nicely across the top there, and then curving round to the back. But the other issue that we did have, of course, was the shot line. I've managed to maintain a decent shot line in there now, so I'm very pleased with how that's come out. Next step really is get that last bit of putty sanded down, and then I'm going to get a bit of primer on it and just have a look at it. I've just given that a primer coat, and although it is going to need a filler primer on it, I really wanted to just get it covered in, and it will highlight where the kind of low spots and bad spots are on it. But I hope you agree, that actually doesn't look too bad. So we'll see what that's like when it's dry, and then we can always flat off and put a bit of stopper in if we need to, here and there. But yeah, very impressed with that at the moment. So that I think will do for the day, and we'll crack on with doing the other side another time. Okay guys, there she is. I hope we can get the other side looking just as well. I'm sure we will. Thanks for watching Otto's Garage. Stay safe. See you soon.
Bye bye!